Well, welcome everybody. Thank you very much for coming to this second talk from the Australian Music Vault entitled Can I Have Your Autograph? Before we begin, I'd like to acknowledge the Kulin people as the traditional owners of the land on which we are gathered. We pay respects to their elders, both past and present, and to other elders and Aboriginal people here today. So my name's Jenny Valentish. I'm a journalist and author, and just thinking a little bit about my own fandom. I'm one of a little team that got a laneway named after Chrissy Amphlett behind the Palace Theatre. And that was, because I think we need to preserve legacy and think about that when we're being fans. And apart from that, as a teenager, I very nearly got a gay bikers on acid tattoo. And I'm very glad I didn't. That's a sort of legacy I could do without. But tonight, as well as talking to the panellists about their own experiences, we'll be talking more generally about their tips for being a collector, what goes on in the brain when we experience nostalgia, the role of the internet, fan etiquette, bad fans. we all know them. And the all-important question, what is the best thing to say to an artist immediately after they've come off stage? Because I would love to know that. Yeah, well, we'll start with you, Peter. So to my right is Peter Green. He started working in the Split Enz office in 1980 and has ever since worked for Crowded House and Neil Finn as a PR and fan club head honcho. He's gone on 10 world tours, working on everything from merch to bandroom business, which sounds a bit mysterious to me, but that's the description he gave me. His other non-Kiwi joys would be skyhooks. And in fact, in his office, he has an archive of around 120,000 items related to skyhooks, Split Enz, and Crowded House, from costumes to backdrops. And he's loaned items to the Art Centre, the Powerhouse, the Hard Rock Cafe, and other exhibitions. You've got to appreciate the ingenuity of some other fans, though, haven't you, Peter?
For certain. So should I tell one of the little stories? Would you like that?
We're going to do a little story each. Yeah.
There is one fan who was a country boy, and he got in for free for a very good reason. In December 1989, Split Enz, Crowded House, and Boom Crash Opera were doing an end-of-the-decade tour around Australia, and they're playing quite large rooms, entertainment centres. And so they decided to do a surprise show at the Mudgee country club, and we all jumped on the tour bus. It was all exciting because I was working for 3 bands, including Boom Crash Opera at the time, which was very cool because then I can ask them all 3 for pay rises at the same time, so which none of them did. But we arrived at Mudgee, and our manager Grant Thomas came out and basically said, "We don't have a door girl tonight. We don't have anyone to do the door list. What are we going to do?" And I said, "All right, I'll be door girl. I've got the legs, all right." So the doors open and all these people come in. We've got a very short guest list because it is Mudgee and there are very few Finn family clan living at Mudgee. So I'm there and this young man comes up and he goes, "I work for the band, I'm on the door list." And I thought, oh, he must be related to the crew. And he goes, "My name's Peter Green." Right. And I kept a very straight face for the first time in my life. I know I've known some of you a long time. That would be very hard for me to do. And I looked at him and said, "Oh, really?" And I was thinking, surely you're not the man who started Fleetwood Mac, because I'm the only other Peter Green apart from him. And so I put him aside and I let him stand there. I said, "I can't find your name." And I said, "Listen, I do have to tell you, my name is Peter Green." And he went bright red. He looked horrified, like he was about to do the 5-minute mile. And I just felt so sad for him, and I also thought he was kind of bold. But then I thought, what a bad night to pick, the only night that I'm doing the door. So I did let him in. So in the end, imitation is the sincerest form of flattery. Now, I have to say, this isn't a thing for all of you to go down to Howler and try to be Holly okay tonight. So don't try and get in trying to be Holly on the door, because we've got your faces, all right? You won't let him in, will you, Holly?
No, definitely not.
All right, that's
You've got to have good hair. Like, if you can pass with someone, with a bob and olive skin, then, give it a crack. But
Okay, so don't try that at home, okay? It's only going to work once with me.
Well, I'm going to introduce you now, Holly. So Holly Pereira has been an active participant in the Victorian music industry since the humble age of 16. When she's not up the front of a crowd, she's working the assistant venue booker at Howler. Holly also works as a music journalist, with her work featured in publications such as Beat, the Sydney Morning Herald, The Big Issue, and Stack magazine. Now, Holly, you're not afraid to say what you mean when there's an artist in earshot, are you?
So my all-time favorite band is Manic Street Preachers, and I'm probably like 5% of their, like, in terms of age, there's not really many people who are in my age demographic because they've been around since like the 90s. And they played Festival Hall in 2013, and I was really excited because I've been waiting pretty much since I was like 13 or 14 to see them. And I went up to Nikki Wire, who is the band's like main like lyricist and like the one that puts the set list together, and I just went, oh, I'm really bummed you didn't play this one particular song. And he like challenged me going, but you got like this really deep cut from that album being the Holy Bible, which is like considered their magnum opus. And yeah, I just thought I'd give him some cheek for not playing like the most popular song off the album.
It just shows it's worth heckling though, doesn't it?
Pardon me?
It just shows that it's worth heckling.
Totally, yeah. And I do it to this day. Sometimes even when I'm interviewing, I go, oh,
or
like,
booking.
You're in the country soon, like, you should play these songs when you come.
Plant no seeds.
Totally, yeah. They go, oh, yeah, I'll take a mental note, we'll see what we can do. But rarely it happens.
And so, to Holly's left, Kylie Crew is in the house.
Yes.
We have Owen Lambourn. Now, what did I call you?
I called him Holly.
Yeah. That's what I thought
didn't hear it. It's
One
fine.
too many wines. I'm taking this over.
Owen wasn't even allowed to watch Neighbours as a kid, but he was allowed to watch Rage for some reason. So he'd get up early at the weekend to see the I Should Be So Lucky video before flicking it over to watch it all over again on Video Hits. Now he's one of the Kylie Crew, a group of around 30 people who would run into each other camping out for Kylie tickets. And now they get invited to exclusive Kylie events. He's been interviewed by the Star Observer and Women in Pop, which is a great magazine, you should check that out, about his love of Kylie. And he's contributed to collecting Kylie as part of the Arts Centre Melbourne's, I've put Partick, I think that means exhibition.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's part of the Midsummer Festival as well.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
Owen, you've given Kylie some fashion tips, haven't you?
So, all right, I'll go back to the start of this little story. We were invited, when I say we, the Kylie Crew, were invited to the Channel 10's The Project program, and we had our own row of reserved seating, and my seat was right on the aisle. And if you've been there, it's a very tiny studio. So on the aisle is the entry and exit of the studio. So the night was kind of special because it was the eve of her Kiss Me Once tour. It was also special because she was the co-host of the show that night. And I thought, well, it's the eve of the tour. I'll wear a tour tank that one of my friends got from the opening night in Liverpool. And as she was exiting the studio, I thought I'd give her a cheeky wave as she walked past, and she went to wave and then noticed my tank, and the wave turned into a point, and she gave me a little as she saw it and exited the studio. Then the following night she put a post on her Instagram account and she was wearing the exact same tank. So I like to think deep down that I inspired her fashion choice that evening backstage in Perth. So yeah.
And can we just see what you're wearing now, please?
So promo for her album coming out April 6th, Golden, and it's the lyrics from Dancing.
So that leaves Lynne Trute, and Lynne and her husband Andrew are reverentially referred to as the Trutes in Nick Cave circles. And over the decades, they've seen Nick perform around the world and have even observed several albums being recorded in person. So I hope you'll tell us more about that at some point. And amazingly, they donated their huge collection of Nick Cave memorabilia to the Australian Performing Arts Centre in 2008. So you can see bits and pieces in the vault. Lynne, a critical ear runs in your family, doesn't it?
It certainly does. I'd like to tell a story talking about when we were fortunate to hear Nocturama being recorded. I was pregnant at the time with my daughter, who is sitting on the end there. She's now 15. And Nick came out from recording Wonderful Life. And I had actually felt Lauren kick for the very first time with my hand. And Nick came over to us and he said, "Trutes, what do you think of this song?" And I said, "Well, I think it's wonderful. The baby thinks it's wonderful." And he goes, "Or she hates it." And incidentally, at the very next show that we saw him, which was at the Sydney Myer Music Bowl, he actually opened with that song. So it was very special.
Let's just ask the baby, do you love it or hate it? Love it. Okay, that's great.
Yes.
That's great, you were right.
No, she does. She does.
All right, so we can get cracking. Let's talk about how this all began for you. Did you collect autographs as kids? Did you have quite an obsessive nature? How did it begin? Anyone?
Should we go down the line again?
Go on.
Let's see. I was 6, and the first celebrity I met, an Australian celebrity, which was great, Skippy the Bush Kangaroo, Dapto Showgrounds. I figure at 6 that if Skippy can steer a speedboat and play harmonica and beat Frank Thring in a fight, that at least Skippy could give me an autograph as well. So, but the real first celebrity was Graham Shirley Strawn, Warrawong Shopping Centre. I did put the date down, 13th of December 1975. So just before Christmas, I remember looking down the end of the arcade, and Santa Claus was there with 6 children, and Shirley Strawn had 2,500 screaming girls and 1 boy. And those words from Shirley Strawn, "Hey mate, do you want an autograph?" And of course I did, wearing my little Skyhooks orange t-shirt, and I found the autograph book, which is great, in the archives.
Got stars stuck to the front.
I know, look how 70s is that, right? It has, I looked through and I
Do you
thought,
want me to hold your
wow.
mic because you've got 2 hands?
It's got, Brian Ferry, look, just everyone, and look, Skippy. See, what a smart kangaroo. And, he writes neater than Shirley Strawn did. But anyway, so Shell the Curl, first celebrity for me, and charming and wonderful. And I was skyhooked from that moment on.
Fantastic. Lynn.
I guess I'll tell the story about how when I first met my husband, Andrew, I actually hated Nick Cave. I used to ban him from playing his music, I have to admit. He used to play it in the kitchen, and I used to think, what a dreadful noise. And then one day I was out
It was
shopping.
the birthday party era, to
It
clarify.
was the birthday party, and it was Lydia lunch, and it was a lot of screaming, and it was just...
That's the
and
best
it was live.
Nick Cave.
Sorry?
That's the best Nick Cave.
I know, I agree now. But
Wrong. Boys Next Door, by far better than...
But then I went out shopping, and I heard on the in the music shop Tupelo playing. I went, I like this. I had to creep home and say, "Darling, I quite like Nick Cave." He proposed shortly after.
Oh, wow.
And the rest is history.
That's awesome. Well, for me, Jenny kind of summed it up in my introduction, but yeah, as going a little bit further, I wasn't allowed to watch Neighbours. My older sister wanted to watch Neighbours, but we weren't allowed to. Mum just thought that it was rubbish and that you could find out what was going on by reading the TV Week. So that's why we weren't allowed to. But music in the mornings on weekends was always a ritual for all of us. And as much as I wanted to watch cartoons, my sister would put on Rage and we'd watch the top 50 countdown. And I can remember watching the I Should Be So Lucky video, and I think, yeah, it's just... It was the start for Kylie internationally, but because it was such a fun and colourful and catchy song, I think I was kind of in the demographic maybe Stoic and Waterman were writing for, being a whole age of 7. So yeah, I loved it. I loved everything about, I don't know, the song, the colour, what she was wearing, and as soon as Rage would finish, we'd flip over to Channel 10 and we'd watch the top 30 countdown just to see the video again. So, and when it came to favourite videos, my parents really couldn't afford to buy us albums, so we would put the VHS in and record our favourite video clips, and we'd watch them back whenever we could. So that was our version of an iPod back then. So that's how it all started for me, and it's been from there that I've just been absolutely fascinated with Kylie and music in general. So that's a little bit about me.
Well, my parents played a lot of music in the house, but they never really tried to push anything onto me. But my mum was really into the Beatles, my dad into Elvis, and that kind of, brew a love for both of them. And I guess me forging my own path and discovering music was probably around the time that Australian Idol was a big thing. And I used to get really intense about whichever contestant I loved the most and would vote for them on my dad's phone. And I thought that was what music was, that you just covered songs for a minute and a half and then Mark Holden gave you a touchdown or he didn't. That was the meter of whether it was good or not. But I discovered, I guess, rock music for myself by listening to The Cure. And then when I discovered Wikipedia, I trolled the alternative rock section and then came across Manic Street Preachers. And then I think I read their Wikipedia article from start to finish, and I was really intrigued by them because if you don't know the story behind Manics, so they're a trio at the moment, but they were a quartet, and there was a guitarist, his name was Richie Edwards, and he went missing in 1995, and that was the year I was born, so I was convinced there was some sort of weird parallel. He disappeared 3 days after I was born, so sometimes I think I am the reincarnate, potentially. I'm not going to don't put that on record. But the first song I listened to was this really heavily charged political song called If White America Told the Truth for One Day, Its World Will Fall Apart. And I remember I was 13 at the time. I didn't know what politics was. I was sitting in my bedroom on a Saturday morning and I think Rage was on, and I was oh no, I'm just going to troll on the computer because I was obsessed with the computer at the time, and just remember my life changing. And I pictured the band being Kiss copycats, just really glamorous people, and two of them, Nikki and Richie, who are the glamour twins, they are quite glamorous, but then the other two are just working class men from Wales, and that's kind of their vibe. They're a bit dad rock at times, and I get teased for liking them because I am a young woman, but I still love them dearly. And yeah, the rest was history, as they say.
Cool. Okay, look, even though we're lucky enough that all the artists that you're into are still very much producing new material, I want to talk about nostalgia a bit. So according to a study by Johns Hopkins University, when nostalgic people listen to music from their teenage years, you'd probably expect the brain to be lighting up like a Christmas tree. But actually, the areas of their midbrain involved in rewards are less active than in people who aren't so prone to nostalgia. And that seems odd until you consider what happens in the brains of people who repeatedly take drugs. Their brains become so accustomed to the high that it requires higher and higher doses to sort of get the same kind of hit. So I'm thinking that nostalgia is probably a thing that's got your brains very, very sensitized. And can we talk about the phenomenon?
I think, and for myself, because I wear two hats, obviously, working for the band and adoring you guys and being a fan. So I probably get to hear Don't Dream It's Over more than any of you ever. And it's an amazing song, but if you're on tour for 3 months, and even Neil, that's why Neil changes the set for that way as well, it becomes repetition and your brain remembers it. You're going, it's that song again. And you, Weather With You, the amount of times you've said to me, please, I don't want to hear Weather With You in the set. It is that, and also depending on the artist's catalogue too plays a very big part. Neil Finn is probably a good example of an artist that's been able to have 4 bites of a pie instead of 1. So his repertoire is quite expanded. So he can pluck a song from early Split Ends, or he can pick a song from Crowded House or the Malanes, or Solo, or a song from, Liam and Neil's new album that's out mid-August. All right, so he can pick something so it's not boring for him and hopefully not boring for the audience. But then you also have radio, like all the Gold FMs, which are amazing for keeping songs alive. But if you go into a coffee shop and they've got Gold FM on, you're forced to hear those songs and you think, I know that first chord. That's how much your brain recognises that song. So yeah, it's probably just repetition, I think, for many of us, where you want to hear something new and it's not boring because it plays a part of your life. And, you know, depending, it could have played a major part. Message to My Girl is probably a song that has many people propose to their partner with, or on Valentine's Day, good grief, it's played so often. So that can be very, very special as well, even though you might like the song as much as you did in 1980, whatever, it still has a space in your heart.
Do the rest of you see yourselves as nostalgic people?
So much of the music I listened to was like released before I was even born. So I was always
Nostalgia for an era that you haven't...
yearning for like the mid 90s when I was, you know, only just sort of entered the world. Like you were asking us, like, you know, sort of where do we come from? And I remember in my email saying, oh, you know, I love bands like XYZ and I really love Pulp. I wish Jarvis Cocker was my boyfriend in the 90s because he's really hot. I'm always yearning for like a different past, and like I've modeled my whole look off like a different era because, you know, I don't really engage with a lot of the more popular acts currently in music. I'm really engaged with like the local scene and like the local punk and feminist scene. But yeah, I guess like in terms of your Drakes and your Ed Sheerans, I'm really lost when it comes to that. So I guess for me, discovering like bands from the 90s that I really connected with on an emotional level made me, wish I was kind of from that time so that I'd find people that I connected with, because like Mannix had, you know, #1 albums in the 90s, or else like they're lucky to get in the top 200 now. But they do have an album out April 6th, which is the same day as Kylie's, right?
All promoting.
Yeah, competition.
Shamelessly.
Yeah.
You really are all promoting it. I mean, you haven't got the T-shirt, but yeah.
I'm not promoting anything.
We don't need
But
the T-shirts.
Yeah,
We got the fans.
I guess I have a different view of the nostalgia. Yes, there is a slight element of that because he's been basically the soundtrack of my whole life. You know, everything that I've done has been with that in the background. My best friends are here, you know, who I met through Nick Cave. You know, I've known them for how many years now? I've lost track. Too many. Ross doesn't do dates either. 25, yeah. So yes, there is that element, but I always think that Nick just gets better. He's 60 now, but he's better than he's ever been. You know, I think Ross would agree with me there. He's been with Andrew, gone off and seen many, many, many shows over the years together because I'm home looking after my darling daughter. But no, I think you have those moments of remembering the past because Nick will suddenly put in an old song in the set. You know, you'll hear a completely different mix of a favourite song that you have. Like suddenly years later, he'll play Tupelo again, and that just gets me because that's what got me into this in the first place. So I think, you know, it's always better. He just continues to amaze us, and you can't look back. You just got to keep looking forward, but have those fun, lovely moments when you hear that song again. You know, I was listening to the song today that reminded me of Lauren, and it just, you know, takes you back.
Her name's
like,
not Deanna?
Sorry?
Her name's not Deanna?
No,
I
it's
was
not.
Really
it's Lauren.
Expecting it to be
No,
Deanna.
it's Lauren. It's actually got nothing to do with Nick. No, I actually did hear them. I was fortunate enough to be in Mick Harvey's flat when they were recording the video to that. We were waiting to see him, so that was pretty cool. So many stories to tell, but
And you got to draw the line somewhere, haven't you? I mean, calling the kid Deanna.
Oh, come on. Yeah. No, we couldn't do that. I don't think she'd be very happy, actually. Look at her. No.
Owen, got anything to add to that?
I'd probably say when you're a fan of somebody that that has a catalogue of 30 plus years, you can't not be nostalgic, and there's always going to be some part of them that triggers a memory or of some sort. And I guess when it comes to us and the Kylie crew, we have our favourite songs. When Kylie in her shows will do, does anybody have any requests in the audience? We're always shouting out for Did It Again, only because a lot of the track lists that do get done at shows can be kind of catered for the British or European market, and we like to, I guess, embrace the parts of her career that were, I guess, bigger here than what they were over there. So definitely nostalgia is part of her career and part of me as being a fan as well.
We're going to get onto the ins and outs of collecting, but first I've got a bit of a deep one for you, and that is the idea of the artist as a bit of a totem in your life. So I'm wondering what the artist means to you, if they've come to represent something bigger than what they actually are. And then part two of that is, what happens if the artist dies? Like, is that more than just, it's very sad an artist has died? Is that something that's a much greater wrench for you?
For me, there's probably not a day that goes by where I don't get an email from someone saying, you know, I've lost a parent, or something horrible's happened and music has got me through that day, and it's been this particular song. So sometimes a song can just, you know, change your whole day or put you in a better mind space. And I think that's the power of music. With, good grief, there's so many. With a lot of these people here, like what you said, music brought us together. Probably about 20 people in this room, I can think that, who are still like our best friends. It's a funny question to ask this week too, because like 2 days ago, 13 years since Paul Hester died. So for all of us, that's hard, yeah. Very, very hard. And it doesn't change. Time doesn't change that. But at the same time, on that day, on Monday, we released an unreleased song of Paul's. So suddenly there's this music that's out there that I dare say most of you here have probably heard the song that I'm talking about, that had never been released before. And that was thanks to another band member of Paul's who said, I've got this song. So in that way, Paul may be gone, but the music did live on, and in this case, another new song, so even more music that none of us knew existed. So it's that sort of thing. It is a totem. It can last someone's life, the whole life for you. It can be the song that changes your life, or it simply can just be a song that gets you through the day during a tough time period, and we all have those. We all know that.
I think it's interesting you said totem, because I have a problem where I put artists on a pedestal. And I think now with, like, you mentioned, you know, what happens if they die, but what happens if they do something super problematic? Like, you know, example, Morrissey, who is super racist and, you know, was defending Kevin Spacey. I, you know, have loved the Smiths for a really long time. And then when Morrissey, you know, started getting progressively more problematic, I was like, oh, this is not great. Like, you know, you're someone I look up to. And then he just got worse and worse. And it really challenges the way that you idolize someone. I think for me, I have to try and sever the ties between like idolizing and, you know, how it gives me life, because it's caused a lot of trouble for me, because I tend to, I guess, glamorize people in certain lights and sometimes, you know, make mistakes, as we all do. But, you know, I'm thinking when you asked that question, I was thinking about how like David Bowie came to represent, you know, being, you know, androgynous and, you know, exploring with genre, which I think was really amazing. And he was so like, you know, important for that era. And when he died, you know, people are still quite devastated by that because it was so sudden. And, you know, he just gave his everything to his art and released an album like a week before he died. You know, there's, I guess, that at play where, you know, once they die, there's like just this big gap, but people fill it with like, you know, a lot of, I guess, impersonations and events and stuff like that, which is cool.
Not many artists wrap things up the way he did either.
Not at all, no.
That was Bowie, really, wasn't it? For many things, not just the death.
I've got a friend who's absolutely convinced that he's still alive, and it was all just, you know.
Like Elvis is still alive somewhere.
I would say that probably many, many years ago, everyone just thought Nick was just this black, dark, humourless person. And I'm very fortunate that I've known Nick now for, nearly 30 years. He's not like that at all. So I guess I don't put him up on a pedestal. I totally admire what he does, but I don't have this idolised view of him. He is the most kindest, funny, caring, intelligent person who's real. He may be a star, but he's a very real person and very lovely. I mean, I'm not exactly your typical Nick Cave fan. I never have been. I turned up in a red dress when everyone else was a goth with the black makeup, and I thought, who's the individual? I stood out. So I think. So I treat him as a real person, and he treats us that way. He calls us his treasured fans. So I think that's lovely. And when he dies, well, I guess it makes it more important that we have got this collection sat here in this building, that we would celebrate such a wonderful life that he's given all of us.
Massively contributed to his legacy, the pair of you. Yeah.
And I love the fact that our stuff sits in boxes downstairs in the basement. There's donated by Nick Cave, donated by Andrew and Lynne Trute, and I think that just gives me the best feeling, So yes, I'll be very, very sad, but I will also think what a wonderful life he's had and what he's given to everyone. So I'll celebrate in that way. I think funerals are not for being sad. I think they're for celebrating what everyone's given to you. So that's how Andrew and I would view that.
In regards to what Kylie would mean as a totem, well, everyone knows how much I love her. I've loved her to a point where I've actually got one of her tour logos tattooed on my arm. But on the other hand, as well as our little Kylie Crew community, it's become more than Kylie. It's become it's become a family. It's become friendship, and some of our friendships have dated back to about 15 or 16 years now. And they say that once you've been a friend with somebody for 7 years, they're friends for life, and they definitely are. And it's got to the point where we support our successes, we celebrate our successes with each other, but then at the same time, if we're going through personal troubles, we're there as a support. One of our friends is going through some hard times with one of her sons at the moment, and we've got her back the whole way. So it's become more of a family rather than just Kylie as a person. She's created this, and I guess there's probably many stories very similar that she's helped create that she doesn't know about. So there is so much more than just her as a person as well. When it comes to somebody of that on that level passing, I guess we haven't got that with her yet, but which is great. We did have that scare when she had her health problem with breast cancer, but it caused a ripple effect, and she motivated so many women worldwide that was outside that general demographic that are normally diagnosed with breast cancer, and they called it the Kylie syndrome, and they went out and they got checked. And if somebody of that level can inspire people to go and look after their health, I think that's amazing. The other example as well has been so many artists like Michael Jackson, Whitney, George Michael, Prince that became parodies from the media, and once they left us, their legacy moved on, and they got remembered as being such amazing people, what they contributed to the entertainment industry. And we, rather than paying people out, I think that while they're still here, we should be celebrating it as well.
Absolutely. I mean, if you think of George Michael before he died, there were just constant stories about his private life. And then after he died, he gave all his money to charity,
Amazing.
Put up Christmas trees anonymously. The whole kind of dialogue changed, didn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Can we talk about fan etiquette and also the kind of the worst sort of fans out there that you might run into? Running a fan club, you must have
I'm
some
looking through the room. Nah, none of them are here. We've been fortunate. We have got the best fans in the world. Sorry. We really do. Every so often, usually, look, the beauty of working in the areas that I work is occasionally I go on the road and tour. So we make often a 3-month world tour, which is an incredible way to meet fans, usually after a show. So you could be in downtown Whoopville in the middle of a desert in America, and there'll be all these people afterwards that'll just want to go out with you, or just hang out, or we'll bring food, or just want to sit and have a beer. And it's really good because it gets rid of homesick blues.
Do they not bring drugs?
Oh, no, we give them... No, we don't. But no, it's really, really cool. Every so often we do see someone come up and they have that crazed look in their eye, and I can spot it now, so... after 38 years.
What do you do?
I lock the tour bus, I bring out the hammer and the nails and, then drive off really quickly. No, I usually talk them down a little bit and they have some sort of calm to them as well. Sometimes it's the first timers who have never seen an artist before and they just get really, really overexcited and they say silly things or lunge with scissors to cut hair off.
I told you not to tell anyone.
I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. It is our secret. You did Ken Morrissey, now come on. He was only talking about his acting, Anyway, yeah, so very rarely do they cross the line. Artists are humans, like we've all said. They have good days and bad days. Most fans can pick up when an artist is having a bad day and they're quite respectable, I find. I don't know if that's the case with Kylie or with Nick.
Oh, and you look like you're poised.
There are fans that we don't like. And I think that's where the fan etiquette does come into it. They are a person. They do have a private life. And I think that should be respected. There are fans of Kylie that will camp outside her house with their phone on video, and they wait for her to come home from whatever it may be. And she's on camera. What else has she got to do? She's under pressure and she obliges their requests. There was one video of a guy put up on YouTube where he asked to sing a song with her while she was on camera, and it looked like she'd just come back from doing her shopping, and she just stopped and she obliged and did it happily. But I do think that that's when it's stepping over the line. You should, they're human. We have our private life. We like to keep that private. I think it's the same with them. There's also fans that do travel the world and like to think that it's owed to them because they've come so far that they should be front row. And we've experienced that. Like Kylie did her anti-tour, which was a tour of B-sides and unreleased tracks, which was targeted to us diehard fans. And one young lady flew all the way from the Netherlands and camped out. And when we got told by security that no, queuing doesn't start until a certain time, she wouldn't move, and she almost spoilt it for all of us who were there because she didn't obey. They said that they weren't going to let us in if we didn't vacate the area. So we were ready to go, but she was stubborn. She wanted to stay. So that kind of nearly spoilt the moment for us. So there are fans that do get up you go.
I think it's interesting you mentioned that some people feel like they're owed an artist's attention because there's an entitlement where I consume your music, I buy all your records, now sing a song with me on camera. In terms of fan etiquette, I was thinking of the time I met Nick Cave and my friend, this was at the Astor Theatre, he did a Q&A after 20,000 Days on Earth, which is a great film. And we went up to him and he was giving everyone hugs and kisses. He wasn't really getting photos taken. I think he was signing a few things. My friend just ran up to him and went, I fucking love you. And I was just stunned silent because I was oh my God, it's Nick Cave in front of me. And I was just thanks, bye. I was really anxious. But I think, everyone has said, treating them like a human, and I think they don't want to be floundered upon, you've just got to be cool. A lot of the people in the local music scene, because I've just been at so many of their shows, I've come to become really good friends with them, and it's just a matter of approach them afterwards, go, oh, I really liked your set, do you have stuff online or whatever, because we're talking a lower level where their stuff isn't readily accessible, and people respect that. If you respect them, they respect you. There's definitely ways you can cross the line. I've camped out for shows many a time and have been told to clear a driveway because a truck's getting in, and I've held my ground. So I've probably been that annoying fan.
Lynne, I reckon Nick would have some pretty obsessive fans.
Yes, he does. Just to add to your 20,000 Days on Earth, I don't know whether you know, but my husband was actually in that film playing an archivist, so with Janine.
Is that the scene where he's got
so
the slideshow reel, or is that a different one? Am I thinking of?
It's when he's wearing the diamond shaped jumper, the grey jumper, and he's with Nick. Janine is the one who's mostly with him, but Andrew's there showing things as well.
So
I did hear about Janine's story at the Kylie on Stage launch, so I thought that was pretty amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. So that was pretty cool for him to he went over to Brighton in England to do that. So that's the ultimate, to play an archivist when he really is one. But yes, there's been some pretty strange people along the way, which you very quickly work out that
Probably knitting Nick dolls out of their pubes kind of thing. I'm picturing.
Sounds more like your fetish.
Actually, Bongwater had a song that was a bit like that. Do you know of this song?
No.
Okay, we'll talk about it later.
Yeah, we will. Yeah, so yeah, there have been some, but you quickly work out who you want to stay friends with and who you don't, and you get a distance. But I've really had wonderful experiences from other fans. You know, do you want me to tell the story about the guy in Italy? Years ago, there was a photo taken of us, but we didn't know at the time we were in Glasgow, talking to Nick outside the venue. And years and years later, because they were the days before the internet where you had to write to people, you had to get friendships, you know, pen pals as it were, going to trade items, etc. And someone sent the photo of us to Andrew, which was really funny. It was like, I didn't even know this was taken. But the funniest thing was we were tracked down by this fan when we were here in Melbourne, and he actually came to stay with us when he was in Melbourne, and we took him out. So, you know, we've made some pretty good...
I love those connections. Yeah,
Sorry?
I love those connections.
Yes, they're awesome.
Let's talk about the serious business of collecting. How those of you who do have massive collections, how you have archived them. Because once upon a time it would have been with a typewriter, you know. Where do you keep them? What are you doing now?
For us, wow. I think 1980, so you weren't born? You weren't born?
Definitely wasn't.
Oh, you were? Okay. We started, I started with the Split Ends office, and with nearly every band has one member that tends to collect things. In the case of Skyhooks, it's Greg McCanish, who was a bit of a bowerbird. In the case of Split Ends, it was Noel Crombie. In the case of Crowded House, it's been Nick Seymour. So in that way, there has always been someone there. A lot of the time, it wasn't stored very well, as Noel would tell Janine, who does the archives here. 30 costumes were lost in England. They were left in a trunk. Split Ends were coming back 3 months later, and they didn't for 2 years, and English winter had set in, and all these beautiful original handmade stage costumes were nothing but kind of pulp and swamp water. So in 1980 at the Ends office, I started setting up the first archive for Split Ends, and Skyhooks was almost a natural thing. The fan side covered that, but band members suddenly would turn up with costumes, like giant lizard suits by Bongo Star, and just the most outrageous costumes Skyhooks had. So, you know, one day when Mount Dandenong's on fire and I have to clear the archives, I'll be wearing a lizard suit, running down the mountain, trying to save it. Computers have helped a lot because it's much easier for the archival part. I can code everything, number it. We're very fortunate we live on 2 acres, so we have these beautiful giant gum trees which make wonderful drying areas for the Crowded House backdrops. So tourists will be going down the tourist road and they'll see huge burning buildings. The only strange thing is one of the Crowded House backdrops is a forest, as you know, Janine, so there's a fake forest in a real forest. It's really hard to tell the difference. The animals are quite confused as they wander by. So everything's catalogued. We've got around 120,000 items, which is a hell of a lot. We have 2 archival rooms, and certain things get stored certain ways. We're nowhere near as good as the amazing Arts Museum archives. I know that. We don't even wear white gloves, okay? Shame on us. So that's kind of it. You know, it's just part of a natural thing now. When something comes in, it gets coded, we photograph it, you know. And we also lend ours out worldwide, which is really good, and usually for free.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Lynne, within your answer, I please want you to reference spaghetti western. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm just trying to weave in what I was going to say. Yeah, I will. So we emigrated to Australia in 1994, and half of our shipment on the cargo was our collection. So, yeah, and the rest, probably 25%, was Andrew's music other music things, CDs, etc., and then a little bit of furniture and a few clothes. So Nick took up most of it. So for many years, I guess, particularly as we became aware that this collection was a very valuable resource, we were like, what on earth are we going to do with this? If something happens to us, where's it going to go? And also things started yellowing, especially being shipped across the world. So we looked at various options, and then we came across Janine, and we donated, was it 17,000 items you told me earlier? I didn't even know how many it was, but there's a lot. And they're now in a very nice, well-stored, well-catalogued, good temperature control. So we feel like that's our legacy to the world to do that. Included in this collection, there's many things, lots of posters, all the usual stuff, but there's also some interesting audio cassettes, and probably my daughter and Luke wouldn't even know what they are. But years ago, back in '88, Andrew used to write to Mick Harvey and various other people, and they had a really good relationship there of trading information. So Andrew would send the gig lists along, and Mick would let us know what was right, what was missing, because you couldn't look up stuff up on the internet then. But he got sick of writing it, so he decided that he would record. So he used to record his replies on little audio cassettes with the spaghetti westerns, Morricone as a backdrop, which was lovely. And I had the fortunate job of transcribing every single one of those. And sometimes Mick will be telling you a really important fact, just as you got the crescendo on the spaghetti western, you're like, rewind, play it again. And I used to worry that those tapes would break.
And it must have been deliberate. I doubt he just happened to be listening to Ennio Morricone.
Yeah, but he used to different soundtracks every tape.
Depending on the mood.
Yeah,
I'm
really
going to
cool.
leap, because I don't think this question applies to you so much. So I'm going to leap to another question, which is, for those of you who have started fan clubs or meetups, how does that work? Like, how do you communicate with everyone? How to keep them excited? How did you, if you did, approach the artist in the first place for permission, that kind of thing?
Once again, a long time ago, my partner Mark and myself, huge Skyhook fans. This is pre-Split Ends, before we started working in the Split Ends office. So we just didn't think the record company were doing a good job around looking after fans. So Mark and myself just created a Skyhooks fan club. Bit of anarchy.
How did you put it out there?
Well, we knew we'd go to so many gigs with fans, and the first 10 rows were people we knew. So we'd swap addresses. In those days, we'd all be writing letters. We'd just go into the Fig Tree High School library with sink washers and use their photocopy machine, so we didn't have to pay for any of it. And then just mail them out to fans over the years. Around the time that we came to Melbourne, because it was a leap of faith. We just loved Melbourne, and it was just getting expensive. 2 schoolboys coming down to Melbourne every weekend, or catching the bus or whatever. So it made sense to live here. And so we were technically unemployed, though we did get a flat in Toorak. Hey, we had good taste. Around the time Skyhooks broke up, Split Ends suddenly started becoming massive. We were big fans of the Ends. We'd seen them a long time. I went into Mushroom Records. It was at Windsor at the time, just to grab some final Skyhook posters. I was going up the door, and there was the secretary said, "No, you had to go to Michael Gudinski's office." Now, in those days, it was the top of the building, and Michael had a reputation. It still is. It is. It's just a different building. So I went up there thinking, what have I done? I've put my foot in, and again, I've been a bad fanboy. And so I go there, and there's this strange man with his feet up on Michael's desk. And I thought, wow, Michael's changed. It looks nothing like him. And it was Nathan Brenner, and Nathan Brenner had been around the scene, in fact, went to school with Michael Gudinski, and he was the manager of Split Ends. And Nathan said, come in, I'm the one that wants to see you. And I'm thinking, this is strange. Split Ends are now big. He's at Michael's desk. And he said, I hear you know everything there is about promotion and fans. And of course I said yes. And I'm thinking, and I didn't even know what he was talking about. And I had this idea, and I said, so do you want me to work for you? And he said, we want you to do all the fan stuff and see where that goes. And I said, okay, if I can work in the Split Ends office,
Is this for free?
Well, I did this deal. I said, why don't I work for free for the first three months? And if I'm really good, then you gainfully employ me, and I start learning about the music industry. and promotion and all the other bobs and bits. And Nathan, God bless him, he said, yes, that sounds great. And so that kind of lit the fuse working for Split Ends. And all the fan stuff followed. It was part of the daily ritual. We'd go and carry mail bags worth of letters, which, you know, is so different having the internet now. Your back is much, it's not hunched anymore.
Well, Owen, internet boy, tell us how you run the Kylie crew.
It's not just necessarily me. There is a few people, but the way that Kylie crew evolved, this goes back a few years before Facebook. So there was a forum called Say Hey, and a lot of us Aussie fans connected through that particular forum. And whenever there was a Kylie event on, I think one of the first Kylie events I went to was a gig at, well, not a gig, but a themed night at a bar called Club UK. It was on Exhibition Street, and they were doing a Kylie versus Madonna night. So a lot of us, I think that was around the time she was doing her Fever tour. So a lot of us went for that night, and we got to know each other from there. And as time went on, we would, as you were mentioned in my introduction, we would kind of send messages through Say Hey or via email saying that we were going to catch up, that we're going to camp out for tickets. Tickets go on sale on this date. We're going to camp out this night. So we'd catch up that way. We'd then arrange to meet up before shows as well. And it just got to the point where we thought it just might be easier to create our own little Facebook community. So it's a little closed community where we all interact on, as I was saying, on a personal level, on a fan level. We share new photos, we talk about new songs that have been recorded, rumours that are going on about video clips and everything, and it just went from there. Then we decided that we'd start up a Twitter and an Instagram account where we share a lot of that, and we share a lot of what we do.
It's public, is it?
Yeah, the Instagram's public, yeah. So we share a lot what we're doing, and we also share stuff that Kylie's doing in regards to what her upcoming projects or past projects or Throwback Fridays and things like that. And we also get together for other events such as Bar Kylie, which has become a well-established branding for fans to get together. It's usually once or twice a year. And tribute shows. So one of our friends in the Kylie crew is Lucy Holmes, and she does a tribute show called 100% Kylie, and that's promoted by Kylie
Surely
herself.
99% Kylie or something.
Maybe. But that's what the show is called. And yeah, she's toured the world for, I think it's going on nearly 17 years doing the Kylie tribute show. So we go to those. We went to a 3D screening as well of the Aphrodite tour. And the Aphrodite tour, if anybody went to it, actually had a stage that went out to a tip, and it had a water show. So at the end of the show, you got drenched if you were in this particular section of the stage. And when it went to the cinema, we thought it would be fun to create a 4D experience. So we took our water guns in. We occupied the whole back row. And when it come to that moment in the show, we actually started hosing down people in front of us, and they had no idea. So, where's this water coming from? So we're a bit cheeky like that, but we do all of those type of things and get together and have dinners and whatnot. So that's how it's evolved, and it's got to the point where Kylie knows who we are as that title and has actually extended invitations to special events as well.
That's it. Brilliant. It's question time. So there is a mic over there. So if people just put their hands up if they have a question. We usually get this shy.
Be brave. Come
please.
on. You've always there's one
got
question you
loads
wanted to
more,
ask.
but I'm pretty sure there'll be some. Yeah, go on. Wait.
I think this is basically to Peter in relation to when fandom ends and sort of archiving begins. I saw Skyhooks at the Crystal Ballroom, supported by the Boys Next Door. But the crowd was there to see the Boys Next Door, and the Skyhooks kicked the Boys Next Door off because there was too many fans. And then the Skyhooks came on, and they were awful, right, because they had their new lead singer. And for the first and last time in my life, I heckled, and I was yelling, "Get off," and bring the Boys Next Door on. And the guy, I can't remember his name, the lead singer, actually said, "Why don't you just leave?" And I said, "Thank you, I will." And I left. And so my question is, did you continue being a fan once they got a new lead singer, and did you continue the archiving of the new band?
As someone who was there that night and loves the Boys Next Door, as I've said to you, when they supported Skyhooks in Sydney and were booed off stage almost every night, I loved them. And I took photos of Nick, Tracy Pugh, all the Boys Next Door.
Roland?
No, he wasn't there that day when I did these photos. So wearing gangster suits with eyeliner, and it was their second visit to Sydney. So I loved the Boys Next Door, so I wouldn't have been one of the ones booing at the Crystal Ballroom. Tony Williams, and this is a shout out to him because it's Tony Williams' birthday today.
So sorry.
For Skyhook fans, Shirl was a mate, and we loved Shirl, and it was massive and changed the face of Australian music. We've lived in the 70s, became the biggest selling Australian album, bumped off by Kylie, I believe, years later. Tony Williams joined the band, and the one thing that happened that was mighty, all the fans who loved Skyhooks suddenly had access to the band. They didn't need tons of security. Shirley wasn't being attacked. Tony would go out every night with all the fans in cars, have dinners. We'd go hang out at Bondi Beach after shows. So it took the band off the pedestal, like you said, and made Skyhooks into a bunch of humans again. And in that way, I totally loved the Tony Williams lineup. There's probably about 20 unreleased songs that were so much better than anything that was released that in theory may even come out later this year, which are great. So to answer your question, I think it becomes personal taste. Some people love things, some people hate things. That's what a gig's like. Sometimes support acts. Amazing. Skyhooks blew Deep Purple off stage at Sunbury. I wonder how many Deep Purple fans stayed behind and booed. I don't know. I don't have an answer.
Do we have some more questions? While you're thinking, I've got one because I said I'd ask it earlier. Someone's come off stage, you're a fan, you're heading to the door. I always find this really awkward, and I'm a journalist. I just like, oh, that's good. It's just awkward. What's a good thing to say, do you think? What does the band want to hear?
That B-side of yours from 15 years ago?
Train spotter alert.
Why didn't you potentially play that? Would you play it in another show on the tour? Just nerd out. But like I said, because the majority of shows that I go to are local gigs, it's just a matter of going, oh, that was awesome. When are you playing next? If it's a bigger band, I haven't actually waited behind after a show for a musician since I was maybe 18, which wasn't that long ago. But after the Libertines played the Curtain, which was this crazy last minute show, we were oh, we've got to wait behind afterwards and try and meet Pete and Carl, and we met them, and it was pretty cool. And I quickly wrote a note and gave it to Pete going, oh, here, I wrote you something, and he's just oh, cool, thanks. They were both pretty wasted, as to be expected.
Well, that helps, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does help. Yeah, maybe if you're in a friend of mine went, oh, can I have a cigarette? And he was oh, yeah, sure. Sometimes
that's an icebreaker.
Yeah, finding something in common, or can I get you a drink? Sometimes works.
You look like you're going to say something, Lynn.
I was. It's kind of slightly off tack, but I just remembered something about how you treat artists as normal people. In Paris, and I can't remember the year because I don't do years, but it was a long time ago. It might have been around 92. Or maybe before. Anyway, doesn't matter. And we were backstage and we're sitting next to this guy. It would have been 92 because we were coming on holiday. No, it doesn't matter, but it does to me. And we were sitting next to this guy and we were talking and saying, oh, we're going to Australia. And they were saying, oh, that's cool. I'm from Melbourne. I come from Australia too. And Andrew goes to me, what's your name? Michael. Oh, that's cool. What do you do, Michael? Oh, I'm in a band. He was Michael Hutchins from NXS. And we didn't realise. And he loved it because he was treated just as a regular person. They're just people like you and I. So really, if you thought it was an awesome show, tell them so. But wait your moment. Don't, when they come off stage and they're all, let them come down a bit and then say if it was an awesome show.
haven't had the chance personally to be able to
Haven't
do that
met
yet.
Kylie yet.
I've had encounters. I haven't actually.
Can we start
had
a
that
petition?
Feel free. We were invited to be in a section on the red carpet at the Melbourne Swinging Safari movie premiere, and Kylie actually came through, did all her press, and then she walked around the corner. And we were, as fans, asking her to come over, but her security actually came over and said, "We're going to bring her out later, don't worry." So we're all kind of happy about that. And she came over and just started casually signing, and I can remember saying to her, "Kylie, just want to let you know the Kylie crew's here." And she said, she stopped what she was doing. She goes, "In that fact," she goes, "I'm going to get a photo with you." So she grabbed one of our phones and took a group selfie, which was, a spin out. And we've put that up on our Instagram. But that was pretty amazing that as soon as we kind of name dropped, she knew exactly who we were. And people did have those little nostalgic pieces. Someone had a photo from one of her cast headshots from Neighbours, and she remembered it and was so happy to sign it. Someone had a Neighbours board game. So we had that nostalgic piece, as we were discussing earlier. But it felt like that we were interacting with a friend that we hadn't seen in ages. So I guess it's what I would do if I had that moment was just to, I guess, first off, introduce myself and say who I am and tell the person how much I enjoyed that part of the show or I enjoyed that part of the movie. So, I think that's important to them as well.
And strength in numbers. Do we have any questions? Yes, good. We can fit one question in. There's a mic coming though.
Thank you. This is my name's Rod. I'm a Kiwi living in Sunbury, and this is a question for Peter. Peter, what's your most memorable or treasured memorabilia from Split Ends, and why?
You picked a hard one. I'm just trying to think. There's probably one of the coolest, strangest thing is Neil Finn's Star Trek top from the Never Ceases to Amaze Me video clip, which was filmed at Melbourne Zoo, because that was a really fun day.
Do you wear this stuff in private?
Only when the hills are on fire. But saying that, Greg McCaish's fake leopard skin jumpsuit looks very warm during a Kalorama winter, I have to admit. There's for Crowded House, the Well Where You Live video clip where he holds up the house and it flies off, which is actually a real house with a little Meccano motor made by Noel Crombie of Split Ends. We've got that, and it's the only item from the archives we have in our house. We don't even have gold records and everything in the house. All that stays in our office and the archive area. But for some reason, this beautiful balsa wood Crowded House is another favourite item. I think Noel's kids, who were very young at the time, got hold of it after the clip and kind of destroyed the motor. But that's a really cool item. There is a little plastic bag that has half a little thing that says Neil Finn's Joint Adelaide, which I have no idea. Sarah, did you bring that over from Adelaide? No? Okay. Thought I should check. And I still have no memory, but then again, maybe I smoked it and destroyed my short-term memory. I don't know. With Split Ends, there are so many things. The Noel Crombie chrysalis head made from terracotta that the record company thought was a wonderful idea in the mid-70s, where you put grass seeds on it and Noel grows hair, and you can comb it into a 1975-76 Noel Crombie mohawk out of fake hair. Now that's cool, kids.
You can do that with Sideshow Bob from The Simpsons, because he's got the giant afro. I really want one. I love The Simpsons as well.
Simpsons too.
Please open your house as a museum. Look, we have to stop. Yep, definitely. Thank you so much for coming to the second talk. These talks are going to be regular, so keep looking at the website and seeing what's coming up. And please thank the panellists for coming along and sharing their wealth.
Thank you.